Hi everyone, welcome to Midnight Storytime. Before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. This man has been a ghost for 15 years. It all started when a famous streamer picked up a photograph he cherished, sparking a massive internet search for Elena. When he finally saw her again, she was already married. He truly wanted to vanish. But even after Casper disappeared from her sight, she ended up spending the rest of her life alone. Before she passed away, she was still clutching the other half of that photograph in her hand. The night Casper died, the psychiatric hospital unexpectedly burst into flames. Due to the building's complex layout, many patients couldn't escape and perished in the fire. Casper has been wandering the ruins of that asylum ever since. His life as a spirit had just begun. At first, he had a few companions, but one by one, the other ghosts faded away. Casper was the only one left. He was bound to the asylum, unable to wander far. Day after day, he sat by the window to kill time. Casper had watched the sunset thousands of times, far more than just 44. 15 years passed like this, and the hospital slowly fell into total decay. The grass grew tall, thorns coiled around the rubble, and wild roses bloomed over the ruins. Neighbors whispered that the place was haunted. They told stories of a male ghost who devoured humans. They warned children to stay away, saying that if they were naughty, the ghost would snatch them. It was all nonsense. Casper had never harmed anyone, let alone kidnapped a child. Then one day, a girl suddenly appeared. She was holding a phone, talking to herself. "Hello, everyone. It's me again, Shimmer Baby Cute. Today I'm at the legendary haunted Alzheimer's hospital, abandoned for 15 years. They say 27 people were burned alive in a fire here. Rumor has it the youngest victim was only 18. After the tragedy, the facility was sealed off. Let's see if we can find any ghosts tonight." Casper leaned over her shoulder, his translucent wrist brushing hers as he peered at the screen. "I see," he thought. "She's live streaming." He knew some people did this to make money. She suddenly stiffened, shrinking her neck as she continued. "Even after 15 years, you can still see how massive the fire was. The walls are charred black. The damage is severe. I've reached my destination," she said to her viewers. After scanning the dark room for a few moments, her flashlight landed on a corner of the wall. Sierra squatted down. From a gap in the crumbling masonry, she pulled out a soot-blackened iron box. Casper hopped around her anxiously. "That's my treasure. Don't mess with it." But she couldn't hear him. She went ahead and pried the tin box open. Just like that, his secrets were laid bare. She was being quite nosy. She picked up a singed photograph from inside and held it up to the camera. "Look, everyone, the guy in this photo is so handsome. He looks quite young, though. I wonder if he was even an adult." Casper huffed in annoyance. "Fine, since you called me handsome, I'll forgive you. And for the record, I was an adult. I wasn't small at all. I was even in love once." The comments section on the screen exploded. "Wait, was he one of the patients who died 15 years ago? The spirits of those who die young are usually very resentful. You probably shouldn't touch their relics. Umeba, so young, and yet." Sierra read a few comments aloud. "People say this asylum was managed very strictly back then. That's probably why so many patients couldn't escape when the fire broke out. Look, it seems there's someone else in the photo. You can see a bit of shoulder in a white dress. Looks like a girl." The chat moved faster. Was she the one he liked? Can psychiatric patients even fall in love? Imagine being loved by a madman. How terrifying. Casper wanted to smash the phone. He felt a wave of profound sadness. He wasn't insane, he just had autism. His father had always told him that as long as he stuck with his treatment, he could recover and fall in love just like anyone else. He wasn't crazy. Sierra looked at her phone and snapped at the screen. "If you can't speak like a decent human being, get out of my live stream." "Man on my foot. You're the only normal one? Your whole family is normal." Casper blinked. This Sierra girl, she's not so bad after all. She flipped the photo over. Casper stared at the two words written on the back in his own handwriting. Elena. She was his first love. Because Casper had refused to go to school, starting from his second year of high school, Elena became his private tutor. That year, she was 19. His father said she was brilliant. In high school, she had been the top-ranked scholar in their city. She was a star student at Peking University, skipping 3 grades and qualifying for graduate studies by her junior year. As for why she agreed to tutor a boy like Casper, he never asked. It didn't matter whether he agreed or not. She was going to be his tutor regardless. Before Elena, his father had hired dozens of tutors. But whenever they started a lesson, Casper would just drift off into his own world, coloring or carving wood. One by one, those tutors had quit. When Elena first arrived, Casper ignored her, just as he had ignored the others. Casper assumed she would curse him behind his back, or give him all sorts of nasty nicknames. People often thought he was a fool who couldn't understand or complain, so that was usually how they treated him. But Elena was different. She talked into his ear about the lesson topics incessantly, regardless of whether he seemed to be listening. In reality, Casper understood almost everything. After their sessions, she would lay out some papers. "This is an assignment based on today's content," she would say. "Do it if you have the time. I'll be going over it in class tomorrow." Casper didn't do them, simply because he didn't care. Once, he deliberately scribbled all over her test papers, ruining them. Instead of getting angry, she looked at the mess and said, "You drew this frog very beautifully." It was clearly a monster. How could she think it was a frog? Casper felt a surge of annoyance. "Did I say something wrong?" she asked when he ignored her. She looked down and continued speaking. Elena's eyelashes were very long. When she blinked, they fluttered like the wings of a butterfly. She was always so calm, seemingly indifferent to his silence. "Do you understand this question? If not, tell me. I'll explain it again." She would tap her finger lightly on the table. Casper would ignore her. "Since you understand that, let's move to the next one." Whenever he actually didn't understand, he would turn his head and look at her. She would repeat the explanation immediately. Casper found a strange sort of fun in this. He would intentionally look at her again even after she finished, just to see if she'd break. After 5 repetitions of the same point, Elena remained perfectly composed. Does she ever get angry? He wondered. A few months later, Casper finally spoke his first words to her. "What is a little monster? Why do my classmates call me a little monster?" Elena was stunned for a moment. "Who said that to you?" Casper didn't answer. She asked again, "Someone called you that?" Casper nodded. In response, she drew him a picture and asked, "What is this?" "A boa constrictor that has swallowed an elephant," Casper replied. Elena smiled faintly. "But many people would think it's just a hat." "That's stupid," he muttered. "Humans are always like that," she said softly. "They're quick to show love, yet even quicker to deny anything that differs from their own view. They think you are different from them, and so they hold a prejudice against you. Prejudice is the real little monster. You are not." "But I'm different from normal people," Casper insisted. "You are unique," she replied firmly. "You are very special. Everyone is different. It's nothing to be ashamed of." No one had ever said these things to Casper before. She asked him, "Do you want to know the story behind this drawing?" Casper nodded. "Finish this assignment, and I'll tell you." "Fine." Elena brought him a book, The Little Prince. Casper felt that he was just as special as the prince in the story. But Elena? She was even more special. The Little Prince once watched the sunset 44 times in a single day. "Elena, I want to watch the sunset 44 times a day, too. If you take the college entrance exam and get into Peking University, I will take you there to see it." Casper was certain of one thing. He didn't like school, and he didn't like the people in the outside world. But if Elena was there, perhaps the world outside wouldn't be so unbearable. After the exams, Elena kept her promise and took him to Peking University. In the school auditorium, he finally watched the sunset 44 times. It was a program Elena had written herself, using models to simulate the scene. But then, she told him she would never tutor him again. "Why? Elena, I like you. The entrance exams are over, but my love for you will never end." "You are still young," she replied softly. "You haven't seen the world outside yet." Casper understood then. Elena didn't like little monsters like him either. "Elena, I'm not stupid. If you don't like me, you could just say it. But don't deny my feelings." Casper rarely spoke such long sentences. Just because he didn't like to talk didn't mean he didn't have his own convictions. Elena was stunned. Casper knew that many people liked her. He could understand why. But Elena didn't understand him at all. She didn't realize that Casper had only ever let her step into his private world. She didn't want to come in. Fine. Forget it. Casper decided he would never speak to Elena again. No matter what she said, he wouldn't listen. As long as he willed it, he could block out every sound from the outside world. He only wanted to live in his own world. When Casper was young, he couldn't understand what others were saying, nor could he find his way out of his own mind. He didn't understand why his mother cried when she looked at him, and when she finally left, he didn't feel anything in particular. It was only after a long time in treatment that Casper learned how to step out of his shell. Even then, complex emotions often eluded him, but he knew one thing: tears symbolized sadness. His mother simply hadn't wanted him that much. After meeting Elena, Casper finally understood what it meant to love. If you like someone, you share your world with them. You want to be near them, and even if you do absolutely nothing at all, you are happy. Whenever Casper shared his strange ideas with Elena, she would actually think about them seriously before answering. Even if her answers weren't what he expected, he cherished them. After Elena rejected his confession, she dropped him off in front of his house and asked, "So, you're really never going to talk to me again?" He wondered why she cared what he thought, since she didn't love him back. But Casper nodded honestly. "Can we just stay friends?" she asked. "But I like you," Casper replied. "You don't like me. That makes me sad. If you like someone else or get close to others, I will be sad then, too. That is why I cannot be your friend." Elena fell silent. Just as Casper was about to walk away, she grabbed his wrist. "I don't want to make you sad," she whispered. And so, Elena and Casper stayed together. She was just as she had always been, messaging him every day, calling him to tell him stories, and taking him out. They rode the Ferris wheel and went to see the dolphins. Whenever Casper felt afraid, she would hold his hand. But when Casper's father found out, he forbade them from being together. "She's sophisticated," his father barked. "She only tells you she loves you to trick our family out of our money." Casper didn't know how to explain it. He could only repeat over and over, No, Elena isn't like that. She likes me, and I like her." His father sneered. "Do you even know what liking someone means? She's a normal person. How could she possibly like someone like you? She just sees you as an easy target to manipulate. I should never have hired her as your tutor in the first place." "No, Elena didn't lie to me. I know what love is." His father locked Casper in his room, determined to never let him see Elena again. On a day of torrential rain, Elena stood outside the gates of his villa, refusing to leave. Inside, Casper screamed and thrashed in his room, but his father refused to open the door. Elena waited for a long time, a glimpse of the powerful, unyielding woman she would eventually become. In despair, Casper retreated back into his own world. He stopped speaking to his father. He stopped eating. He had only one desire: to see Elena. Finally, his father made a deal. "If you go for treatment and try your best to get cured, I'll let you see her. You two can go out together." "I don't just want to see her," Casper insisted. "I want to be with her." "Fine. Once you are better, I will let you be together." Trusting his father, Casper entered the psychiatric hospital. He took his medication every day and spent most of his time staring at the world through a window. He was waiting for the moment he was normal enough to be with Elena. Casper didn't actually know what normal meant. He had aced the college entrance exams. He was brilliant. But the doctors didn't ask him academic questions. They asked him impossible ones. "What do you think love is? Do you truly understand the concept of marriage?" Casper remained silent. One day, a new patient arrived at the asylum. The nurse whispered that the woman had hidden her history of mental illness. She had relapsed after getting married, and now her husband had sent her here. The nurse said she had harmed herself and others. "Mental illness is hereditary," the nurse sighed. "That poor man. He must regret ever falling in love with her, let alone marrying her." A cold fear gripped Casper. He realized then that liking someone wasn't enough to stay together. Living together could lead to regret. Maybe the doctors were right. Maybe he didn't know anything at all. He had been dead for 15 years, and he still didn't understand. Why was loving Elena the reason he was sent to an asylum? Why did no one believe his feelings were real? Suddenly, Sierra became very excited. She spoke into her phone with fervor. "Why not? Let's start a movement. We'll call it Finding Elena. Let's dig into the story behind this half photo." She placed the photograph back into the iron box, tucked the box under her arm, and prepared to leave the ruins. Casper panicked. He rushed toward her, but his hands passed through her like mist. He could only scramble to follow her. "Give it back. That's my photo." But she couldn't hear him. For the first time in 15 years, Casper stepped beyond the gates of the asylum, following her all the way back to her home. He realized then that it wasn't the asylum that had imprisoned him all those years. It was the photograph. Casper was bound to it, unable to move beyond its immediate radius. Helplessly, he watched as Sierra uploaded his image to the internet. She began collecting leads, contacting various people, and digging into the history of the Green Hills Asylum. On the internet, finding Elena was quickly becoming a viral sensation. Casper felt a flicker of dread. He was terrified that if Elena found out he was dead, she would be devastated. If she were to die of grief, Casper felt he might truly retreat into his own world forever, never to emerge again. But as a ghost, he had no way to stop Sierra. Suddenly, Sierra sat bolt upright in bed. Her face mask slipped off as she stared at her screen, muttering to herself, "No way. It can't be." Casper peered at the images on the news feed, his eyes wide. It was Elena at 30 years old. His first love, his Elena. So, she's been living abroad all this time? He wondered. Has she forgotten me? Is that why she never came to the asylum to see me? He studied her 30-year-old face. Why isn't she smiling? Is she unhappy? Casper felt a desperate ache to reach out to her. He glanced at Sierra, then scanned her room. He wanted to do something, but it was too difficult for a spirit like him. 2 days later, a comment appeared online from someone claiming to have known Casper. Sierra was ecstatic. She lived for these kinds of surprises. Elena would never have reacted with such loud excitement. Once Sierra calmed down, Casper leaned in eagerly to read the phone screen with her. The commenter claimed to be his high school classmate. "I haven't heard from him since our second year of high school," the message read. His name was Casper. He wasn't exactly normal, but he would never hurt anyone. He just didn't listen in class. He always did his own thing, as if he couldn't hear what anyone else was saying. He never paid attention to anyone. Looking back now, it was probably autism. Yeah, definitely autism. It wasn't a mental illness. He just didn't study much, didn't talk, and ignored everyone. Other than that, he was pretty normal. Sierra immediately replied to the user. "Do you know who Elena is? What was her relationship with Casper?" The reply came a moment later. "I don't know. Casper wasn't close to anyone. But that name, Elena? It does sound a bit familiar. Let me see. Casper prayed silently, but the classmate wouldn't remember. But his prayers were in vain. "I remember now. She was our senior in high school. The top-ranked scholar in the entire city that year. Just search the archives. You can still find her graduation photo." Sierra finished her search and let out a stunned curse. "No way. Come on, seriously? This is the Elena of the internet today? One of the big 3 industry titans? There's no way it's such a coincidence, right?" Casper thought, trembling. "Yes, it must be impossible. Sierra, please, just stop. Don't find her." But Sierra was relentless. On the day Elena was scheduled to return to the country, Sierra used her connections with a reporter friend to stake out the airport. She squatted by the terminal exit, waiting for the woman who haunted Casper's box. During these days following Sierra, Casper had discovered something. The theory that everyone is connected by only a few degrees of separation was proven true by her. There seemed to be no one she didn't know or couldn't reach with a single phone call. Casper hovered beside Sierra, his spectral form radiating anxiety. Though he was terrified of Elena discovering his death, a small, selfish part of him was desperate to finally look at her again. Then, he saw her, the 30-year-old Elena. She was exactly as he had imagined, yet there was a man by her side. He held her arm, walking with her in a manner that suggested deep intimacy. Casper felt a surge of irrational anger, followed quickly by a heavy sadness. He had never even held Elena's hand. But then, he forced himself to be happy. Elena looks like she's doing well. That's enough. Sierra didn't hesitate. She lunged forward through the crowd, thrusting the half-photograph toward Elena. "Do you still recognize the person in this picture?" "Sierra, why are you being so reckless?" Casper cried out, though no one heard. The question was sudden and entirely inappropriate for a public arrival, but it worked. Elena stopped dead in her tracks. Her eyes fell upon the singed photograph. Then, her gaze shifted, cold and piercing, to Sierra. It wasn't just Sierra who felt the chill. Casper himself recoiled a step in fear. Elena's eyes looked as though they could devour someone whole. "I don't know him," she said flatly. Casper's heart, or what remained of it, shattered. Elena said she didn't know him. Later, sitting in her car and clutching the photo, Sierra felt conflicted. Was I really wrong? Is it just a mistake? She shook her head. No. Elena's reaction just now was too strange. It wasn't the look of someone who didn't know him. It was something else. Casper couldn't understand. How could Elena have forgotten him? Was her past love just a lie? If she loved someone else now, he could accept that. But to forget him entirely? Even if she knew he was dead, shouldn't there be a trace of sadness left? Suddenly, there was a knock on Sierra's car window. It was the man who had been standing beside Elena at the airport. "Hello," he said smoothly. "My name is Matthew. Could I offer you a sum of money for that photograph in your hand? Name your price." "I'm sorry," Sierra replied firmly. "I won't sell it for any amount. But if you can tell me whether Elena knows the person in this photo, perhaps I'll just give it to you for free." Matthew looked at the picture and let out a cold laugh. "I can tell you this. The person in that photo nearly destroyed Elena's career. Owning that picture isn't a good thing. For Elena, everything about this man is a minefield that must never be stepped on. You should be careful." Sierra, intrigued and perhaps a bit intimidated, handed the photo to Matthew. As he walked away, Casper heard him mutter under his breath, "Things are getting interesting. Is this a lightning rod or a ticking bomb? I'll have to dig in to find out." Casper expected Matthew to destroy the photo immediately. Instead, to his surprise, the man took it back to the hotel and presented it to Elena. "You still haven't let him go, have you?" Matthew asked. Elena took the photo. Without so much as a second glance, she tossed it directly into the trash can. "I forgot who he was a long time ago," she said flatly. Hey. Casper felt a chill. Matthew's attitude was strange, but Elena's was worse. He sat on the floor at Elena's feet, staring at the photo lying in the trash. He couldn't describe the hollow ache in his chest. That was the only photo he and Elena had ever taken together. He remembered it so clearly, the day they went to the amusement park. He had taken it himself. She had been holding a pink marshmallow in her hand. It looked so sweet. When his father discovered their relationship, Casper had managed to smuggle his half of the photo into the asylum. During the fire, he had hidden it inside a tin candy box, wedging it into a mouse hole behind a peeling wall. He had been lucky to save even that half. As a ghost, Casper had spent every single day of the last 15 years painting Elena's face in his mind. Even though the physical photo was ruined, he had never forgotten a single look she gave him. Every word she ever spoke was etched into his memory. It was all still there, vivid and real, inside his head. But Elena had forgotten. When the hotel maid came to tidy the room, she took the trash and Casper with her. The photo was dumped into a much larger bin outside. Bound to the image, Casper had no choice but to follow his discarded self into the dark. In truth, Casper had so much he wanted to tell Elena. During these 15 years, he had come to understand many things. He had watched boys and girls kissing in dark alleys, promising to love each other forever, only for the boy to turn around and kiss someone else the next day, repeating the same vow. He had witnessed couples divorcing, fighting over assets, and children with such vitriol they looked like they wanted each other dead. He had seen people who clearly felt nothing for one another choose to marry after a single blind date, their eyes void of affection. Casper still couldn't perfectly define what love was, but he knew one thing. He loved more deeply than most of them. Casper didn't know how to lie, and he didn't know how to change his mind. But now, he no longer understood what love meant to Elena. As night fell, Casper leaned against the side of the dumpster. Love really is a complicated thing, he thought. No wonder Father thought I could never learn it. Just before dawn, Casper saw a figure racing toward him. It was Elena, still in her pajamas. Her eyes were bloodshot as she frantically rummaged through the trash until she finally found his photograph. She wiped it clean and pressed it tightly against her heart. "Elena, are you sad? Why? I thought you said you forgot." She returned to her room with his photo and sat on the edge of the bed, motionless and despondent, like a stone statue. Her silence was more heartbreaking than any sob. Casper wanted to reach out to her. "If it makes you this sad, then please don't love me anymore. It's okay if you forget me. I'm sorry I kept this photo." Elena tucked the photograph into her wallet, carrying it with her wherever she went. From then on, Casper followed her every day. She never spoke his name, and she made no effort to find out where he was. She still had no idea that he had died long ago. She attended a post-summit gala with Matthew. Everyone praised them, calling them a perfect match in both talent and beauty. People asked when they were getting married. The thought of Elena marrying someone else made Casper want to vanish into nothingness. He wanted her to be happy, but he couldn't bear to watch that happiness with his own eyes. It felt like a selfish impulse, wanting to exclude her from a life without him. He began to wonder, why hasn't anyone told her I'm dead? If she knew, would she remember me? Would she still marry Matthew? Soon after, Elena bought the old villa where Casper used to live. The real estate agent hesitated before closing the deal. Miss, I should warn you. They say this house is haunted. The house has had 2 owners since then, the agent explained. The previous owner went bankrupt and committed suicide right here. As for the very first family who lived here, they say the son died a tragic death. The father was so traumatized he moved abroad. You might want to reconsider. Casper heard the words and felt a jolt of spirit. But Elena was busy replying to a message. She hadn't heard a single word the agent said. Once she finished reading the contract, she signed her name with a neat, sharp flourish. Casper stared at her beautiful handwriting and her long, slender fingers. He remembered those hands. They weren't always this agile. When he used to teach her woodcarving, he had to guide her step by step. He remembered talking to her while they worked. She would pretend not to pay attention, but her ears would always turn as red as ripe cherries, making it impossible for him to focus. Late that night, Elena sat in the room that used to be their study. She didn't turn on the lights. Casper looked around, realizing that every trace of his existence had long since been wiped away. She lit a cigarette, staring quietly out the window. Casper wondered what was crossing her mind. The next day, she had the remaining furniture moved out. The villa became instantly hollow and empty. Every day, Elena would spend a few hours here doing absolutely nothing. As the sun began to set, the light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the room. She would sit on the bare floor, watching the wild roses swaying outside. The sunset washed over her face, bathing her in an atmosphere of profound sorrow. Casper sat down beside her, keeping her company in the heavy silence. Elena, are you thinking about me? He whispered. You remember me so clearly, so why did you lie? Are you ashamed to talk about us? Elena. Both Elena and Casper turned at the same time to see Matthew standing there. He looked frustrated, his voice tinged with anger. Didn't you say you had forgotten him? We're supposed to be leaving soon. And yet, you bought the very house where he used to live, because you can't let him go, can you? Just go find him directly, Matthew challenged. I don't want to, Elena replied, her voice trembling. I can't. Even if I found him, then what? He doesn't even understand what it means to love someone. Then do you hate him? I don't hate him, she said softly. He didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't love me back. And I don't have the courage to try and make him love me again. I'm too afraid to try. What are they talking about? Casper thought, his heart aching. Why would Elena say that? I know exactly what love is. I may have been 18 when I died, but I've lived 10 more years as a ghost. I'm 28 now. Elena continued, her voice hauntingly calm. I'm like one of the roses in this garden, no different from any other flower to him. He liked me one day. Perhaps he liked something else the next. But for the last 15 years, I have never once changed my mobile number. I answer every single call from an unknown number. I'm always terrified that it might be him. Casper felt a wave of cold horror. Elena didn't know. She didn't know that before he was sent to the asylum, his father had confiscated his phone. I wanted to find him, Elena whispered, but I couldn't. His father told me I wasn't good enough for him. He said Casper had lived in an ivory tower since he was a child, with only the best food and clothes. He told me if Casper followed me, he would only suffer. I worked as hard as I could, just to prove I was worthy of him. I wanted to make sure he would never have to endure a moment of hardship. I climbed my way to the top, fueled by that sheer stubbornness. And now here I am. I am at the peak. If he wanted to find me, he easily could. But he hasn't come looking for me. Elena, I am right here beside you. Casper cried out, though his voice was but a ripple in the air. Perhaps he forgot you long ago, Matthew said softly. I never forgot. His father was right, Elena whispered, her voice devoid of hope. He didn't understand what love meant at all. I lied to him. Don't say that. Elena, I loved you for the very first moment. I wanted you to stay with me. Elena didn't cry, but Matthew did. Let's just go back abroad, he urged. We'll never come back here again. He isn't worth it. Elena placed the photograph down on the bare floor. All right, she said, and then she walked away. Casper sat on the floor alone, watching the sunset. For the first time, remembering the taste of Elena's tears, he learned how to cry. He realized then that when you lose someone you love, your heart truly does shatter into pieces. Elena, I am dead. That is why I can't be with you. Even if I found you, you wouldn't be able to see me. Casper's spirit began to turn translucent, fading at the edges. No longer bound to the photo, he found he could drift through the city. He floated to Sierra's house and looked at her computer screen. The internet was exploding with a renewed scandal surrounding Elena. A post from a former classmate read, "I was an upperclassman at her university. She was talented with computers, but she had a terrible personality. In her senior year, while tutoring a wealthy boy with a mental defect, she seduced him to try and marry into money. She ended up getting kicked out by his family." Another comment added, "She was under academic probation back then. Someone reported the scandal, and she lost her spot in the graduate program. She couldn't stay at the university anymore, so she dropped out and went abroad. She made a fortune out of spite, I guess. Just a classic Phoenix girl climbing the social ladder. Did she have a weak stomach? Is that why she could only eat soft rice, live off a man?" Casper trembled with rage. Why do they look down on her like this? "Sierra, please help me. Tell them the truth." He was filled with a desperate wish that back when Elena was being humiliated and losing her future, he could have stood by her side and silenced every rumor. No wonder she thought he didn't love her anymore. How helpless must she have felt, facing those slanders all alone? If only Casper had stood up for her then, she wouldn't have been forced to leave school. In her eyes, and in the eyes of the world, he hadn't been a victim. He had been the one who abandoned her. Elena must have been so devastated, Casper thought. And yet, she said she doesn't hate me. She's just too afraid to love me again. "Sierra, please. You have to help me." As if she had heard Casper's spectral plea, Sierra reached out to an old contact from Peking University. "Hey, I remember you and Elena were classmates. How much do you actually know about those scandals floating around the internet?" Back when Elena was dating that wealthy heir, someone caught them in a photograph, the friend replied. The person behind it didn't just report her to the administration. They posted it all over the campus forums. Now, Elena might look calm, but she's no pushover. She tracked down the source and found out it was a male classmate who wanted to snatch her graduate school slot. He was eventually caught and punished for the smear campaign. But what about her and the rich young master? Sierra pressed. There was never any solid proof of misconduct. The university asked Elena to bring her boyfriend in to explain the situation, to prove it was a legitimate relationship and not a transaction, but Elena refused. In the end, to quiet the public outcry, the school felt forced to revoke her graduate fellowship. The friend sighed. To be honest, everyone knew Elena wouldn't do something that stupid. Why would a genius seduce a wealthy guy with, well, a questionable IQ? There were plenty of handsome, rich guys chasing her back then. But the mob mentality won out. People love to kick someone when they're down. She was bullied relentlessly on campus for a while. Then she dropped out. As for Matthew, he's actually her brother. He used to visit her at the university. After their parents divorced, the brother went abroad with their mother. I guess people see her with him now and assume he's just some new sugar daddy. I've seen the trolls online trying to blackmail her with this new evidence. That's exactly it, Sierra exclaimed. Are you willing to step forward and set the record straight? No problem. I've felt guilty for years just standing by and watching. No matter how successful Elena is now, as her former classmate, I feel I owe her this much. But what about you? Why are you so invested in her story? It's a long story triggered by a single photograph, Sierra said. I'll tell you the details later. For now, if you can, ask around the alumni group. See if anyone else is willing to speak up for her. Got it. Leave it to me. After hanging up, Sierra immediately dialed another number. Hey, find out everything you can about this guy for me. Were you a nurse at the Green Hills Psychiatric Hospital back then? I want to ask you about someone. His name was Casper. Do you recognize him? There was a long silence on the other end of the line before the voice spoke slowly. I remember him. He died in the fire. What was his diagnosis? Why was he admitted? Sierra pressed. He wasn't sick. He was normal, the nurse replied. He had autism, but he had progressed so well through treatment that he was no different from anyone else. He just didn't like to talk much and wasn't eager to socialize. It was his father who insisted he be hospitalized for treatment. I think the real problem was the father. He refused to believe his son could be normal. The nurse sighed over the phone. Falling in love at 18 is the most natural thing in the world. He could have had a beautiful life. He was brilliant, and he had such a gift for painting. Once, he asked me to help him contact someone, but his father had strictly forbidden any outside communication. So, I didn't help him. Later, he spent all his time in his room writing letters. Every single one of them was lost in the fire. If I had known then what would happen, I would have helped him regardless of the rules. Do you know what was in those letters? I don't, but I know this. The girl he loved was named Elena. Every day, he sat by that window, waiting for Elena to come and find him. I never knew who she was, but I truly believed his love for her was real. After hanging up, Sierra sat motionless in her chair, staring blankly at her computer screen. She then uploaded the recording of the call with the nurse and added a caption. When Elena was expelled, the whole world denied their love. In the end, one of them died at 18, and the other has remained alone for 15 years. Yet, the world still refuses to acknowledge what they had. I believe Casper truly loved Elena. This was a normal, beautiful love. He protected the image in that tin box with his very life. He is no longer here, but his love remains real. Please, stop looking down on the woman he loved. Sierra, thank you, Casper thought. If I were still alive, I know we would have been great friends. Casper drifted back to the airport once more. There, he saw Matthew pacing, deep in a phone conversation. After ordering his legal team to track the IP addresses of the rumor mongers and prepare lawsuits, Matthew hung up the phone. Casper stood nearby, listening to him curse under his breath. Casper, you really know how to play dead, don't you? Matthew hissed. 15 years, and it's still the same. Why can't you just stand up and say a single word for my sister? She loved you so much. How can you bear to watch her wait for you like this? What about you? Where are you? Suddenly, Matthew's phone rang. Mr. Matt, the Peking University alumni are coming forward one by one to clear Ms. Elena's name. It's causing a massive stir online. Also, there's a streamer with millions of fans, Sierra from Chongqing. She launched an online campaign called Finding Elena. It's gone viral across the entire internet. Finding Elena? Matthew's voice sharpened. They're looking for my sister? Why? Because of a photograph. Wait, I think I know who this Sierra is. She's a well-known creator in the supernatural exploration genre. Recently, she visited an abandoned psychiatric hospital. Stop. Matthew interrupted, his heart racing. Get to the point. She posted that Ms. Elena's first love died 15 years ago. What did you say? 15 years ago, Casper was sent to Green Hills Mental Hospital for treatment. There was a fire. He was one of the victims. Say that name again, Matthew whispered, his voice trembling. What was his name? Casper. Matthew's phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the floor. Not far away, Elena, who had been looking at her own phone, looked up. What's wrong? She asked. No, nothing, Matthew stammered, scrambling to pick up the phone. I just saw those disgusting comments on the internet. I got a little angry, that's all. It doesn't matter, she said calmly. It's nothing. Casper watched them, feeling a strange sense of relief. He was glad Matthew hadn't told her the truth yet. He had already inadvertently trapped her in a cycle of waiting for 15 years. He didn't want to trap her for the rest of her life with the weight of his death. To hold on to her through grief felt selfish, like a final, cruel exclusion. True love was supposed to be about letting go. Since the moment he died, Casper had always hoped Elena would come find him because he missed her so much. But after waiting for so long, his perspective had shifted. Elena should have forgotten him a long time ago. But even though Casper had wanted to see her one last time, his obsession was finally fading. He watched as his body became completely transparent, dissolving into the light. Thank you, everyone, for clearing Elena's name. In the 15th year after my death, I finally got to see my only first love, the 30-year-old Elena. Please, never doubt it. The 18-year-old Casper loved you. Main story end. Epilogue begin. Just before boarding the plane, Matthew grabbed Elena's arm. He had been debating this with himself for a long time. He thought it would be better to wait until she had completely let Casper go before telling her. But he was terrified. I'm scared you'll hate me for this, Matthew whispered. What are you talking about, brother? Casper is dead. He died 15 years ago. Matthew bit his lip as the words finally escaped. It wasn't that he refused to speak up for you. It's that he was dead. He couldn't speak for you. After your relationship was exposed, he was committed to that asylum. He had no way to contact the outside world. That scorched photo? He protected it with his own body during the fire. He always loved you, Elena. He loved you. More than you could ever imagine. The truth was out. Matthew couldn't hold back anymore, and heavy tears began to fall. Elena forced a smile. Don't talk nonsense. But then, the smile froze on her face. She didn't board the plane. Instead, she turned around and headed back toward the villa. Her gait was shaky, trembling as if she might collapse at any second. The scorched photo sat on the floor. The 18-year-old Casper smiled up at her from the frame. Elena collapsed to her knees and clutched the picture. A heart-wrenching, soul-crushing cry tore from her throat. She had lived 15 years believing he simply didn't love her anymore. She thought that was the cruelest thing fate could do. She still remembered that rainy day 15 years ago when she went to find him. His father had pointed a finger at her nose and screamed, "Stop this act. I know exactly what a poor girl like you is after. Let me tell you, my son isn't normal at all. He doesn't even know what liking someone means. To him, you're no different from a dog or a flower. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. Once you walk out of his life, he will forget you instantly," his father had sneered. He's been that way since he was a child. He's incapable of love. When his own mother left, he didn't even shed a tear. If he ever takes the initiative to contact you, I'll allow you to be together. After that day, Elena sent Casper countless messages. Every single one was like a stone dropped into the deepest ocean, silent and swallowed by the dark. He never reached out again. Even when she decided to move abroad, she could never bring herself to change her phone number. To the world, Casper was just a little monster, a strange creature that people might like, but who would never care in return. But she loved that little monster. At 20 years old, her first love had seemingly ended in a hopeless, silent rejection. 15 years later, she couldn't help but return to her home country. During those 15 years, whenever she got drunk, she would dial that old number, only to be met with a cold recording of a disconnected line. Every bit of her courage would vanish in an instant. She didn't dare try to find him, and she didn't dare go to see him. She just waited, but no matter how long she waited, he never appeared. The truth was finally revealed. He had been dead for 15 years. In this era, love is often treated as something cheap and disposable. His kind of love, it truly wasn't normal. But then again, she wasn't normal either. By the time Elena reached 60, her hair had turned entirely white. She died alone in a nursing home, having never married, remaining single until her final breath. As she lay dying, the only thing she clutched in her hand was that same scorched half of a photograph. In her final moments, she saw him, the 18-year-old Casper. She didn't know how to face him. He hadn't changed a bit, while she had grown old and frail. Casper's clear eyes were filled with shock and a profound sadness rather than any trace of dislike. "Elena, why did you come here so soon?" he whispered. "Because I missed you too much," she replied softly. It was just like the days when she used to tutor him. Back then, she couldn't help but arrive at his house 30 minutes early. Eventually, she found herself waiting for him an hour ahead of schedule. In the 25 years since I lost you, I wrote so many letters that never received an answer. Elena knew that Casper had his own private world, but without him, her own world was simply too lonely. To her, every minute and every second without him had been a long, agonizing struggle. The story ends here, and although it's a little sad, it's also a new genre that I found quite interesting and captivating. Thank you everyone for listening.